My name is Julia. I lead IDB's open source initiative, Code for Development, and I'll be your host for this workshop. I see many familiar names here. As always, we are in the third year of Code for Dev, our developers network, and we love getting together with you every month for implementation workshops. I remind you that this is a safe space for you to ask any questions you have about the implementation of the tools we are presenting so that you can later implement in your agencies. For those who are here for the first time, I ask you to register in Code for Dev Developers Network. The link from the form to the form can be found in the chat. And this way you're going to be informed of all activities that we carry on. And today we're going to learn about OpenEMIS, an open source solution for the management of health financing and social protection programs. OpenEMIS is maintained through the coordination of the German Development Corporation. And today we're very lucky to hear from them on how to implement the solution, but also to hear from DataPrev, Brazil's public technology and information company of Social Security, linked to the Ministry of Management and Innovation in Public Services of Brazil, on their experience using and testing OpenEMIS. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Ernesto Lemke, a technical advisor for the German Development Corporation. He's based in Brasilia, Brazil, and works in the Secretariat of German-Brazilian Digital Dialogue, a bilateral initiative created in 2019 between the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation and the German Federal Ministry of Digital and Transport. Ernesto will give us an introduction of today's topic. And while Ernesto and the other speakers are presenting, we ask you that you leave your questions in the Zoom Q&A session. And if you have any issues, please let us know in the chat. Go ahead, Ernesto. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Julia. And buenas tardes and good afternoon to everyone, and also good evening to our colleagues in Germany who are joining in here as well. My name is Ernesto, and it's my privilege to represent the Secretariat of German-Brazilian Digital Dialogue today. This esteemed initiative is dedicated to nurturing collaboration and exchange in digital policy, innovation, and technology between Germany and Brazil. Spearheaded by the German Ministry of Digital and Transport and managed by the GIZ, it also includes digital dialogues with other countries such as India, Indonesia, Kenya, and Mexico as well. The essence of these dialogues relies in uniting experts from academia, civil society, and the private sector to share and expand their expertise in digital transformation. This platform provides a unique opportunity for stakeholders to collaborate, exchange ideas, and develop innovative solutions that address the challenges and opportunities presented by the digital age. Today, in partnership with IDB, we are delighted to introduce two significant entities in the field of digital solutions. As was mentioned by Julia, we will showcase OpenEMIS, an open software solution designed to enhance management of health financing schemes. And OpenEMIS represents a pioneering effort to streamline health financing processes, ensuring efficiency and accessibility for all. Following this, we will spotlight DataPrev, the Brazilian state-owned enterprise, renowned for its robust IT infrastructure and digital solutions for social security. DataPrev is currently evaluating OpenEMIS as part of an ongoing efforts to innovate and improve social security service in Brazil. The work exemplifies the potential for public sector innovation and digital technologies. It is now my great honor to pass on the floor to my distinguished colleagues from OpenEMIS in Germany, who include Sorov, Uwe, and Bader, who will provide further insights into this groundbreaking software and its applications. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward for our productive session today.
Today, we'll be going through OpenEMIS. So we'll start off, I'll start you off with a general introduction to the tool, to the initiative that is around OpenIMIS, which is a digital public good for managing various social protection programs, health insurance, cash transfers, or other social security programs as well. Then we'll get more into the technical details with about how software development is organized in OpenIMIS, which my colleague Uwe will take us through, and then Bader will take us through an installation of OpenIMIS, and he'll guide you through that as well. And I'm also very pleased to share the stage together, not only with my colleagues from OpenIMIS, but also from DataPrev, who will be showcasing how they are now working with this digital public good, and adding to the breadth of knowledge that exists in the community and growing the community further as well. So it's a pleasure to share the stage with DataPrev as well. So just as a background, what is OpenIMIS? It is, as we just mentioned, a digital public good. But if we want to dig a little bit deeper, it's an interoperable and versatile open source software which helps you manage various health financing or social protection schemes. Some of the examples of schemes that have been managed by OpenIMIS are health insurance schemes, voucher schemes, employment injury insurance or accident insurance schemes, cash transfers, and also social registries, so to manage various types of beneficiaries. It is supported by a variety of developers, users, and implementers, and that is where we really draw our strength from. OpenIMIS is of course it is a software, but the community really makes it more vibrant and really brings out the strengths of OpenIMIS. And we do this all with a joint mission to increase and improve access to universal health coverage and universal social protection in the various countries that are being worked on. I'll just briefly go through this detailed timeline. I will not take all your time to go through each entity, but I just wanted to highlight a few aspects. So OpenIMIS itself as a tool is quite mature. As you can see, we started out in 2012 as IMIS. It wasn't open source then, but we slowly developed it into a digital public good. But it does have its roots in Tanzania, and the software has been in use since 2012. So it does bring with it a level of maturity of users, of developers working on it throughout the years. In 2016, as I mentioned, the OpenIMIS initiative was established, which basically made sure that IMIS was licensed as open source, and the product grew as an open source product, and a community of practice grew from there. Um, in 2020, we started having OpenIMIS implementations beyond the health insurance sector that we were mainly being implemented in. So we had our implementations in 2020 for cash transfers, responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, for accident insurance. So that was quite a cornerstone for us in 2020, where we basically went full force ahead to make OpenIMIS applicable to schemes that are beyond health insurance. And one aspect that really helped us in achieving this breadth of functionality is a merger that we went in with the World Bank developed tool called Core MIS, where we in 2023 we agreed that it doesn't make sense as digital public goods, as open source software, to invest in two different tools which are very similar in nature. So we agreed that we build functionality of particularly around social protection, around cash transfer, from the Core MIS tool that the World Bank had developed into OpenIMIS to provide a solution from within OpenIMIS. And we'll see that a little bit later as well. But these four milestones have really played quite a role in shaping OpenIMIS, but of course, there are other very important events as we go along, and you are please feel free to look through it when you have the slides, and then if you have any questions on various aspects of the timeline, we'd be happy to go through it. And that basically that long history and engagement with various countries has brought us to this stage where there are OpenIMIS implementations in over 12 countries, multiple implementations within countries. So we're looking at somewhere around 15 implementations right now of OpenIMIS for these various types of schemes. And overall, the number of beneficiaries in these schemes that are benefiting from these various social protection programs that are managed by OpenIMIS has now reached close to 24 million people. So we're very proud of this number. And on this map, as you can see, there's something tragically missing is the Americas, and we would be very happy to see an implementation in the Americas, and we'd be very happy to support any activities that help get OpenIMIS off the ground there. So that would be we want to take that as a next frontier for OpenIMIS as well. Now, when we look at functionalities, what does OpenIMIS do? So this is a graphic from the World Bank's publication, the source book for social protection, and it basically lays out the service delivery chain in social protection, which goes from assessment of enroll of people and assessing them for their eligibility, enrolling them into programs, providing them certain benefits, and managing these programs. So OpenIMIS basically is a tool that takes you through this entire delivery chain. But we also, in addition to assess and enroll, which are processes in selecting beneficiaries, we also focus quite a bit on the providing and the management of schemes, because we know you as social protection practitioners, there's a lot of detail within providing and managing. There's a lot of MIS work in there. So that's where the focus of OpenIMIS is as well. And one of these examples is in health insurance. So in addition to that delivery chain, if we look at the example of health insurance as one of the solutions that OpenIMIS provides, we're able to provide functionality to manage the enrollment of beneficiaries. So you manage households or individuals, employers, you do various ways to register them, depending on settings. So in very rural settings, from paper-based to a mix of paper and digital, all of those functionalities are available. To service utilization in a health insurance, so verification of insurance membership, collection of service and other medical item details to ultimately create a claim, a medical claim for reimbursement. And then functionality exists in OpenIMIS to completely manage the claim and to do an adjudication of it. So through different rules engines, manual checks, and then a very recently introduced machine learning algorithm based and claims AI module that helps you adjudicate claims faster and more accurately, where the machine learns from human reviews and then helps the humans do more reviews faster. That all these functionalities are available, and of course, all that accumulates into a lot of data being present in the OpenIMIS databases. So monitoring and reporting is also a very strong aspect. So this is a look into how health insurance can be managed using OpenIMIS. But as I said before, health insurance isn't the only solution that OpenIMIS can offer, because the functionalities, and you'll see more detailed functionalities from my colleagues. But what these functionalities can be combined in different ways for you to have solutions to manage these schemes, these different types of social protection programs that you see on the screen, and more. So employment injury insurance, voucher schemes, cash transfers using the core MIS solution of OpenIMIS, beneficiary management through social registers, integrated beneficiary registries. OpenIMIS has these functionalities inbuilt, and because of its modular nature, you can pick and choose and design the solution that you need for managing your social protection program. So with that flexibility, I'll hand over to my colleague Uwe to talk about how that flexibility is achieved through software development and what aspects there are within the software. So over to you, Uwe.
Yeah, thank you, Saurav. And with that, we can move on to the first slide. Maybe I can say a quick word about myself. I have a background in health informatics and work for the initiative since 2018, mainly looking at software development and coordinating the diverse teams which are working in the developer community. Let's look at the technical background of what Saurav just talked about. And if you recall from the timeline that he showed you in some of the slides, there was an old legacy version of OpenIMIS. It's one that was developed under Microsoft Technologies, .NET most likely. And that's what you see on the left side. That's where we started with. And one of the major activities in the last 5 years, almost 6 years now, was migrating the Microsoft technologies to open source technologies. So what you see on the right-hand side is the current stack that we have. So the reference architecture would be a Linux server, having a Postgres database as a database engine. And then for the front end, we use React.js. For the back end, it's Python under Django. And then the data access layer is GraphQL. And for an easy installation, like one part was not just migrating it to new frameworks, it was also like chopping down this big software blob that we had into different modules and smaller structures. So there are about 160 GitHub repositories right now where you have all kinds of different technical Python modules. And in order to get people to install it smoothly, we have created a few Docker packages, one that can give you out of the box install of everything. And that one in turn calls a front end Docker package and a backend Docker package. So you could install the backend separately and access the functionality through APIs and create your own front end. The React.js is a bit in discussion right now. So there are some few strong voices which are considering a migration to Vite and are really pushing for this. So that's under discussion, and it might change in the near future. Can we move to the next slide, please? Oh no, please stay on there. Sorry, please stay on there. I forgot one thing. So if you don't agree with Linux as a server, and if you prefer to have a Microsoft SQL database, you could still do that. So we are still maintaining the SQL Server version in parallel. And of course, the Docker packages, they could still run under the under the Microsoft server. It's just the software parts which have been migrated. So you still have that option. Okay, now we can go to the next slide. Thank you, Saurav. What Saurav just showed you on the screen, the solutions that we have basically will be combined from a number of, well, let's call it modules or business units or functional entities that we have in OpenIMIS. So those 160 GitHub repositories, we're trying to group them into modules. So this is just a structure according to what we have, like in terms of code, like these green OpenIMIS colored things are things that we have right now. And then currently we are in a migration project from Core MIS from the World Bank to add a lot more social protection related functionality. So this, what you're seeing right now is work in progress. Basically, we are migrating the code, but at the same time, we also have to see how we arrange those functional units that come from Core MIS into our existing module structure. And if you go to the next slide, then those are some cross-cutting module structures which we also add. These modules are like purely well, theoretical, you could say. It's basically we are designing the structure to create a link between the business people and the developers. Developers, if they talk about modules, they are clearly talking about a GitHub repository, and business people, if they talk about modules, then they look at the business functionality. But there is no real technical link to these structures, and we can freely like reshuffle the setup and combine it into modules that you need. Next slide, please. Giving you a brief look into our development processes. It's a bit of a crowded graph, but you will get it very quickly. So this is like a recap of the last 2 years. You can see those are the dark green lines, which have like in the center somewhere, they have numbers. Those are the releases. We have releases every 6 months. We are following the Ubuntu cycle mainly. So there's a release in April and there's a release in October. And that's when we grab all the developments that were done in several sprints. So what you see in the line developing, that's basically software development projects that produce code in sprints, and they just merge it to the development branch. And then in the line below that, under technical QA, there's a maintenance team that is collecting those developments, integrating the pull requests, and packing it into releases. So whatever gets done until the code freeze will have a good chance to enter the release. Whatever is not in there will just enter after 6 months. And I think that's a good frequency to be up to date with the packages without really disturbing people with too much noise, and really make sure that we have like fixed points which are tested, integrated, and where we can say, okay, this is a whole package of OpenIMIS. It was released in April 24, and you can be quite confident that it has been tested and bug fixed. What we want to add now is solution building. You have seen Saurav present the different solutions, and if you imagine all the modules that you have seen on my slides being recombined in a way that they match a specific solution, that's basically what this project is about. So the solution building contract will take some of the modules which you need for cash transfer, for example, exclude all the modules that you need for health insurance, like there is no claiming and all that. So we don't have to burden people with that functionality. And they will configure this into smaller solutions. And then based on the big release that we have with all the functionality, we will be able to offer solutions with the reduced functionality. And then we have a second activity that we want to start this year. It's a sandboxing. That will basically take the solutions and run them in an interoperability sandbox, so that we can show OpenIMIS in the role of a beneficiary management system, exchanging beneficiary data with a social protection program, like a cash transfer program, and some of those scenarios. And that will also add some additional quality assurance, because the team that is doing the maintenance is checking the work of the developers, and then the solution building and sandboxing teams, they will be checking the work of the maintenance team and check for consistency of the releases. Next slide, please. The architectural vision of the sandbox is basically that on the left side, we are complying to a digital health scenario. Mainly, we are looking at OpenHIE standards with mainly FHIR APIs to fulfill like data standards in the health sector. And on the right side, DCI, the Digital Convergence Initiative, as an initiative to set up data standards for the social protection sectors, and those are some of the boxes that we want to install there. Of course, we also want to install third-party software like DHIS2, OpenMRS. Those are open source packages which are quite frequently used in the health sector. But there's OpenHIM, an interoperability software package, MyFOS for accounting and banking, and Mojaloop for access to payment layers, OpenCRVS for the client ID information. So we want to see which of those packages we can really bring together, and then we have a scenario where we can showcase to potential users and country decision makers on how interoperability could look like in their country, for example. Next slide, please. We currently have a sandbox environment, and I was told that there are mainly technical people in the room, so please allow me to get a bit more technical than I am already. So this is basically the columns that you see are basically aligned to the GitHub deployment stages. So we have a develop branch where developers develop against, and where they create the pull requests. Then we have or the feature branch, that's where they do their development and upload it to GitHub. Then the develop branch, which is for the integration testing. The release branch, which we use during the releases to do the user acceptance testing. And then the demo branch, which contains the latest release. And all of those branches, or well, not all of them, but develop, release, and demo, they have an OpenIMIS server in our sandbox up and running. So the one in develop contains the nightly builds. The release server is only up to date when during the release times, and then the demo server is always up and running for people who want to just play around with OpenIMIS and see what the latest release can do. And into this environment, we want to integrate now the solutions and the system components from the sandbox and from the solution building projects. Yeah, okay, we can go to the next slide. In the community, we have a lot of platforms and tools, and I assume that you're getting the slide decks, so I'm just listing this page for the links which are pointing to our platforms. We have a homepage, of course. We have a wiki on Atlassian in Confluence, where we actually document most of our activities. So a lot of things, if you are interested in OpenIMIS, we will point you to wiki pages where you get more information. All the documentation is there, and project documentation, events where we have gone to, use case description. So that's quite a busy place. Then we have a forum, an email list. We have a document share all under Google. I'm not giving those links because we're a bit afraid of spam in there. We have a chat group under Discord where you can most of the time reach some of the developers which are online. Then we have an official service desk, which has service level agreements for answering questions. So the maintenance team is contracted to answer those questions. We have an issue tracker in Jira where you can follow up with the development and see what people are working on. The code repository in GitHub, I mentioned that. And there's a platform for internationalization for translating of the front end of OpenIMIS under Localize. I think some of you have already started looking at the Portuguese version of it. I mentioned the demo server, and documentation is also in the wiki. And if you want to translate documentation We have also foreseen a bit of a structure to accommodate different language versions of the user manual, of the FAQs, and so on. So if we can get help on that with other languages, that would be great as well. Next slide, please. I think I'm running out of time. One more important page in the wiki is a value chain for development. So basically, the process from developing ideas and just jotting them down on an empty wiki page and putting them in the incubator. That's the first step. Then the second step is that we, when we get funds to develop those things, we write out opportunities, and we're also pointing to opportunities from other organizations where we think that there could be some implementation opportunity for OpenIMIS in a country. Then we put that on our wiki page with all the relevant links. The next step is when funds match developers. So when for an opportunity or tender, a contract was signed, then we created a project page for that project in the wiki, so people can follow up with the project progress and find the discussions and documentations in the wiki as well. And then also the products like the documentation manual and the releases are documented in the wiki. And if you navigate to this page, then you will find that overview, and you will be able to access like different stages of development. I think I'm almost through. Can you switch to the next slide? This is a freeze of the developers committee in 22, and I just want to show this very quickly to make sure or make you understand that the developers community has a lot of members, but not all of them are active or engaged around the year. So the dark green boxes that you see here, those were times when those companies were under contract, where they were really actively developing things. But that doesn't mean that they are gone, because those people who have worked on the contract, they are still part of the community. Somehow they are not showing up in the calls all the time, of course, but you can still write to them to get help from the things that they have done, and also contract them as potential implementers in countries. And I stopped in 22 because it's just getting a lot. And especially this year, we are seeing a lot of country teams that want to join the community and that are well slowly getting into active development. So it's really getting big, and I think with your input as well, we will see a lot of dynamics coming up in the next year. I think I'm done. Maybe you can test. Yes, thank you for your attention, and I'm handing over to Badar, who is going to guide you through the installation process. So is Badar online? Are we going to...
Yeah, now, thank you, Uwe. My name is Badar. I'm working for GIZ in the OpenIMIS initiative. Now we will try to install the OpenIMIS on a Windows machine. I install it in my machine, and I made a video. We can see the video after that. For the installation, we have first ensure that we have following installed in our Windows machine: PostgreSQL Server, pgadmin4, Ubuntu Windows subsystem for Linux, and Node.js version 16, and Python version 3.11. Now we can go forward for the video. I will share with you my screen. The installation will be in 3 parts. We will install first the database, then we will install the back end, then the front end. Now I will share with you the screen. First, we have to connect to our pgadmin. And we have to connect to our server. As we can see, we have just one database, and we have one user named Postgres. This is the DB owner. Now we will open a query tool in the database, and our initial task will be to create a new database and then establish a database user named MS user and granting them access to the new created database. This is our query. We have to execute create database first. Our database is created. Then we have to create the user, MS user, with the password ms@1234 and grant the connection to the database test MS, what we already created in here. Now we can execute this query and it's finished. After executing the queries, we will refresh the server and look if the database is there. Now we can see that we have new database test MS, and we will also refresh the login. Then we can see that we have a new user named MS user. As you can see, we still connected to the database Postgres with the Postgres user on the PostgreSQL 16 server. Now we have to connect to the test MS database with the Postgres user to grant the MS user some privileges that he needs to make migrations and everything. We will open a query tool from test MS. Then we can see that we are connected to the test MS database with the Postgres user. Then we can execute these queries, and all these queries you will find it on our wiki page. We will execute it and everything is successfully executed. Now we have to move to our Explorer and clone the repository from GitHub. The repository name is database PostgreSQL, and as you can see, our repository is already cloned. And now we have to go back to our terminal and open our Ubuntu or Linux terminal to generate some scripts that we can use to get the schema and some test data in our DB. First of all, we have to change the directory to our already cloned repository. Then we have to create a new folder. After that, we have to go to the folder database script inside our cloned repository, and then we have to execute this command. Then we will get in our output folder a full demo database SQL. Now we will go to our folder and we will find the full demo database SQL. After generating the scripts, we have to come back again to our pgadmin. As you can see, we still connected to our database test MS with the Postgres user. The Postgres user is the owner, and this is not the best practice to use the DB. We have to connect to our DB with our test MS user. That's why we have just to add a new connection in here, database test MS user, save. We will be asked for the password. We click in here yes, then this is the password that we set up at the beginning. Okay, now you can see that we are connected on test MS DB with the MS user. What we have to do, we have to open the generated script. This yes, and this is located on output on the already cloned repository. We have to open it, and the last thing that we have to do, we have to comment these lines because our user has not the privileges to execute it, and we executed these lines already with the Postgres user. Now what we have to do, we have just to execute the query and we are successfully finished with the installation of the DB. Okay, after being finished with the setup of the database, we have to install now our backend. We will first clone our GitHub repository. After that, we change the directory to the newly cloned repository, cd open IMS backend. Then we have to create a virtual environment inside our repository. We will activate it. Now we have to install the requirements. This will take a little bit time. I will come back after the installation is finished. The requirement installation are now installed. We have to go back to our folder. We have to copy the OpenIMS JSON into the scripts. Then we go back to our terminal. We go to script. Then we have to run this command. We will get module requirements text. This is this one. We will take it from here and put it in here. And again, go into the terminal, going back, and then we have to run this module requirements, and we have to wait till the modules are installed. The module requirements are now installed. Now we have to install another 2 external modules. And now we have to change the directory to OpenIMS. Then we have to start the migration. This will take a little bit time. I will come back after the migration has been finished. Database are successfully migrated. Now we can start our server. To run the backend, we have to execute this command. The server will run on the port 8983. Now the backend server is running and we are finished with the setup of the backend. As we are finished with setting up of the DB and the backend, now we have to install the front end. We have first to clone our repository. If the repository is cloned, we have to open it, then open it in Visual Studio Code. Now we have to change the port on package.json. That's our backend running on. This is 8983. We have to save it. Open the terminal. First yarn load config. Then yarn install. As the installation is finished, now we have to run this command and wait till the build is finished. After the build is finished, we have to add Yarn Global Ad Server. We can start our server. Our front end is now started and we can use our software. Thank you. Okay, this was the installation of the software, and normally it's take 1 hour, 1.5 hour. It's depend, but I just took the important thing, and I for the waiting of the building of the front end, of the back end, of installing the requirements, I put everything out of the video, and that's why we had just 10 minutes. But you have to calculate 1 hour, 1.5 hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Banana. And I invite Felipe before we have a couple of questions here in the chat, but I would love for Felipe to share a little bit how DataPrev is, well, the English accent, how DataPrev is installing OpenIMS within DataPrev, and just talk a little bit about the partnership that you guys are having. Why are you testing? We would love to hear a little bit of this story, and then we're going to open for questions. Thank you so much, Felipe.
Okay, thank you for having me, and nice seeing you all, guys. As Julia has introduced me, my name is Felipe Leão, and I work as the Innovation Lab Manager at DataPrev. And before I even start my presentation, which I believe is going to be short, but I would like to first introduce what we are going to show you guys in a few moments. So you guys have just seen Badr explain a little bit on how to set up the database and the servers for both backend and front end in order for you guys to have a live demonstration on how to use OpenIMS in your machines. So here in DataPrev, we're working on a project on how can we make the process even easier for our customers, for our clients. We have a few reasons on why we're trying out OpenIMS this moment. And before I explain a little bit further on what DataPrev does and why we're trying these new things, I'd like to first show you guys a little bit on what we are doing right now and how we are planning on help our clients to deploy a version of OpenIMS for themselves. So I'm gonna share my screen right now. Just a moment, please. And while I do that, I just would like to start by saying that DataPrev is a state-owned company, as Julia has told you guys in the beginning of the presentation, in the beginning of the webinar. And one of the things that DataPrev provides for their clients is a cloud-based solution that's focused on governments. So what we have been working on is on how can we help our clients to use OpenIMS on our cloud-based solutions. So it's a short video and there's no audio on it, so I'm gonna walk you guys along. We're just logging in here on our cloud service, which is GovCloud, and once we're logged in, what you guys are going to see is that we have built a template for building a virtual application that carries all the installation process of OpenIMS, both application server and database. So here we're just starting a new virtual application. We're naming it. It's just an OpenIMS demonstration. And once we click on the next button, there's just going to be a few explanations that both servers are going to be deployed, one for the application and one for the servers. There's a certain steps of configuration that comes by default, but you guys could change it. And the idea is that once you click it, it's going to start building both servers that are required for the application to run. You can see on the bottom of the screen that it's being conducted, and the virtual application is being built right now. Once it's built, both servers will be stopped. They won't be turned on, but they have already been created, as you guys can see, one for the application and one for the database. And I'm gonna just pause here for a moment. Actually, I just skipped, so let me go forward a little bit and pause. So we already have both servers that are required installed. So previously, you guys have seen Badar doing the entire process of installation for the database first and creating the schemes and the user. And after that, forking and cloning the repository from GitHub and installing the server and carrying on all the dependencies. In this moment, we already have both servers required, both the database server and the application server. What we're gonna do now is just explain both servers, how they connect to each other. So we're gonna provide a static IP for each one, and we're gonna tell the application server what is the static IP of the database server. So we're just gonna get in there once again. It's starting both servers. And okay, both the virtual application is created right now. And as you can see, there's no IP address in either of them right now because the network adapters are not configured yet. So we're pretty much just setting up a network for them to communicate with each other. And now we're gonna set up a static IP first for the application server. So we're just telling it to connect. We're just turning on the network adapter and just saying to the cloud service, okay, just provide me with a static IP, and that's what it has done. And now we're going to do the same for the database server. So as you can see, the servers have already been deployed. What we're doing right now, the installation has been conducted already. What we're doing right now is just telling them how to communicate, how to connect to internet and communicate with each other. And now that both have their IPs, we're gonna turn both of them on, and we're gonna get the IP of the database and give it to the application server so the backend knows how to connect to the database. So once it's stopped, the virtual application stopped, we're gonna turn the application on, and that means that both servers are going to be turned on. Okay, it's running now. As you can see, both servers are running. So we're copying the IP address of the database now, and we're gonna connect on the application server command line interface. This is just a CentOS operational system, so it's Linux, as Badr has showed us previously. We're just logging in with our root password. This is just an example. Obviously, on a real scenario, this user would not be used. And okay, so what we see here is that once it has connected to the application server, there's going to be a script on the home area of the root user. And what we're going to do here is that we're going to run this script, giving it the IP for database. And once it has the IP, it's going to do all the configuration process itself. Once again, we're just confirming the IP. And now that the script's running, it's configuring anything that would be left to be configured right now, and it's starting the service. And that's pretty much it. OpenIMS has just been started. And with that said, we're gonna get the IP for the application server and we're going back to our browser, and we're just using the IP for the server in order to show us the interface. And that's pretty much it. We already have a live server of OpenIMIS to be used. It's a dry run of OpenIMIS, so it does not comes with the example data that Badar has loaded. But the idea here is to help our clients to speed up the process of building a new server and then building the application so they can start to use it as fast as possible. Now, why are we doing this? So what is DataPrev and what's the interest that DataPrev have on using OpenIMIS? Well, first thing first, DataPrev is a state-owned company, as Julia has described previously. We're spread across Brazil, and besides 3 data centers, we have a few branches in major states of Brazil. It's a company of over 3,000 employers, and we also provide over 400 services for social security, social assistance, and labor services. So being a state-owned company, DataPrev is pretty much focused on providing services to the government of Brazil. It can be both federal government or state governments. We control the largest database on social registries that Brazil has, and one of the biggest in the world. It's for sure the biggest on Latin America, with 42 billion records in its database. And we also, with all that, we provide over 100 million access to digital services per month. A little bit of our key numbers. So, as I said, our 3 main verticals are social security, labor employment, and social assistance. And on the social security branch, we have we are analyzing over 10 million benefits per year in order to define whether which benefits should be granted or not. And per year, we're granting over 5 million benefits. This means that we have to process the payment for over 39 million benefits per month just for social security. And if you look at for the labor and employment numbers and the social assistance, you're going to see that we also have major numbers there. We're talking about paying over $6 billion in unemployment insurance. We're avoiding improper payment of over $1.5 billion and other things like that. So the main reason why DataPrev has been established about 50 years ago is to provide services for the Social Security National Institute of Brazil. And we have been doing that for all this time. And at the current moment, as I said, we're paying about 39 million benefits per month. We're processing the payroll for the country to pay all of that. And this means that per month, we have to process the payment of over almost $13 billion. And as I said, this is per month. So this is one of the main reasons why DataPrev exists. This is one of the main reasons why we as an institution are so important for the federal government of Brazil. And with that, we also provide services directly to the citizens, because once you have to enroll for a benefit, which could be a social security benefit, it could be an unemployment benefit, or it could be other kinds of benefits that we help the government's process, you have to do that through some kind of interface. So we have a few applications that we provide for citizens, such as Miriam INSS, which is our social security app. We have the employment register card, and we have the CadÚnico application. And just for an example, the employment register card is the most downloaded application, government application in Brazil, with over 99 million downloads. So, as you guys can see, we already have put in place a lot of applications and services regarding social security. So why are we talking about OpenIMIS? Why are we considering OpenIMIS in any scenario in which we act? For us, it's a discussion that began about a year and a half ago. We started analyzing OpenIMIS and what would it be able to help us with, because we had been established that our applications would be very specific, and the services that we provide are so tailored for our customers that maybe OpenIMIS would not be able to substitute it. It would not make sense to try that. but we decided to check other scenarios that OpenIMIS could be used. So as Saurav has stated in the beginning of the webinar, OpenIMIS is a DPG that can be used for a lot of scenarios, not only and not specifically social security. So we have started thinking on what would be other scenarios that OpenIMIS would help with the federal administration. So some of them would be health. So in Brazil, we do have a public health system, but there would be scenarios, especially in states and municipalities, in which the local governments would be interested in provide complementary health assistance. In the sports scenario, we do have programs in Brazil and both federal and state level governments that provide financial support for professional athletes. One of the examples would be the Bolsa Atleta program, and this is not provided by DataPrev right now. This is not an application or system that DataPrev acts in right now, but we do know that, or at least we believe so, that OpenIMIS would be a very interesting application, a very interesting solution to be using in a scenario like that. We also have scholarships and research grants for masters and PhDs that are provided in the educational scenario. So OpenIMIS could be used in a scenario to help both handle all the data and handle all the payroll and payments procedures the same way with culture. So investments in regional projects and cultural vouchers would be one scenario that maybe OpenIMIS would help us. So please see that all these four scenarios that I have listed on the federal administration level are scenarios that Brazil already acts in. We already have solutions put in place for that. But we do believe that OpenIMIS should be studied as maybe a possibility of helping these scenarios with more advanced technological capabilities. In the states and cities level, we also have a few programs and a few social security nets that have been put in place throughout the last years that I believe that could be thought to use OpenIMIS also. One good example is the money transfer programs that we have in Brazil. So in Brazil, we do have a very well-established and world-renowned program, which is the Bolsa Família program. It's a cash transfer program, and given the last years, specifically with the COVID pandemic, we have been seeing scenarios in which states and municipalities decided to provide with an additional cash transfer program, even to those families that were already enrolled in the Bolsa Família program. So we do know that in these scenarios, states and cities had to process a lot of data in order to find out which families should be granted the possibility of accessing those funds. And in these scenarios, they have required DataPrev to help them process this data. So we believe that OpenIMIS would help in these scenarios and maybe some other scenarios considering money transfer programs. Also, supplementary health and social security programs, especially when we're talking about the military and the civil workers, because this is a very common situation in Brazil. Both civil workers and military personnel have segregated social security programs. So OpenIMIS would be helpful to handle those scenarios also. Monitoring citizen living risks living in risk areas of natural disaster and severe weather conditions. That's something that we have noticed very recently in Brazil with the floods that have happened on the south of Brazil. So OpenIMIS would be a possibility for helping with making sure what are the families that are living in more complicated areas in order to easily identify them when something happens. The same way with financial assistance for residential renting. So we do have a program called the Aluguel Social Program, and that's a way for the government to help citizens to make sure that they do have a roof over their heads. And this is one of the scenarios related to states and cities that could be fast forwarded by OpenIMIS. So this is the scenarios that we understand that maybe OpenIMIS could be applied in Brazil. And we also have been considering a few scenarios that we consider that OpenIMIS could be applied in other places of Latin America with our international partners. So one project that we have been working very recently is with the International Labour Association organization, ILO, is a project with GIZ and the Open Ims Initiative to help Haiti, specifically OFATMA, which is an organization of the Haitian government, to deploy Open Ims in an emergency scenario. I believe that some of you, if not all of you, must know that Haiti has been going through a major crisis since the beginning of this year. It's a crisis that did not begin right now. It's a long-term crisis. It's happening for over 10 or 15 years now, but this year it has become even more urgent to see a scenario, because since February, with all the crises that have happened in the security scenario in Haiti, OFATMA has gone offline, and it has just come back online to find out that they have no MIS application in place anymore. So the application that they had working up to February is not working anymore, and they're pretty much handling every single social security program of the country in Excel spreadsheets. This is a situation that we're trying to help Haiti with, alongside, as I said, ILO and GIZ. So the idea is to help them to put Open Imis in place to start working with it and start handling their social security programs. Another thing that we have been carrying on so far, and that's the main reason actually why I have those templates on GovCloud to show you guys, is because we have an internal project in DataPrev to study it and decide the better paths on how to internalize the application, so we can showcase it to our international partners of ISA, which is the International Social Security Association, which gathers, I believe, over 200 countries in the world. I mean, over 150 countries in the world, and I believe over 200 institutions of social security around the world. And this year in November, we're gonna hold the yearly Congress here in Brazil. It's gonna be organized by DataPrev, and one of the ideas is that we do a workshop on explaining then how to deploy Open Imis and how to operate Open Imis, at least as a beginning process, so they can better understand the scenarios that these would be helpful for them on their own countries. So this is pretty much the reason why we have been studying Open Imis, because we believe that there are scenarios in Brazil that it could be applied, and we do believe that there are a lot of scenarios, especially in Latin America, that we can help our partners to work with Open Imis, and that Open Imis could be helpful in scenarios that we're not even imagining so far. So that's pretty much it from my side, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felipe, and all of our presenters. We're going to start the Q&A session now, and we have a bunch of questions to answer. I think the first one, and a couple of different people asked this question, was, and Felipe, you just talked a little bit about how Open Imis and Brazil are supporting Haiti in the re-implementation of Open Imis, but there are a couple of people here trying to know a little bit more opportunities for support if they want to implement Open Imis in local government and national government as well. So we would love to understand what are the opportunities there. I know you also mentioned in the beginning, but what are the opportunities and what people have to do in order to access those opportunities if they want to implement Open Ims in their local or national government agencies?
So I believe that when considering DataPrev as a helping arm, a helping hand on these scenarios, I believe I have described a few scenarios that I have considered on which Open Imis could be used. We're not actually deploying Open Imis internally in Brazil at this moment. We're just studying it. We have been conducting an internal project in DataPrev to better understand the technology and to, as I said, to internalize the technology in order to build an internal team that can act as a consulting team for both states in Brazil and other international partners. So at this moment, we still do not have this consulting team. This is something that we intend to develop in the next few months. The internalization process project is still going on. We expect the internalization to be finished in about 4 months or so. That's when we're going to release the templates for installation of OpenIMS on GovCloud for our clients. So at this moment, we are not providing consulting services except for the Haiti situation, which is an exceptional situation in which we have been asked by ILO and to help with and see how we can fast forward things for them. But as I also said, I believe that in November, we're going to showcase this entire scenario in the ISA yearly Congress. I hope that by that time, we already have some helpful maybe manuals and workshops that we can share with everyone in order to help everyone to try it in their own scenarios and maybe even help consulting with how OpenIMS can help in certain scenarios.
Saurav, okay, I was gonna ask you, so I'm very glad that you unmuted yourself. We are not.
I believe Saurav is still muted.
Yes.
Okay, the hardware mute got me this time. But no, it's already very exciting to see the level of interest and people already see value in it and they want to implement it for their local governments, etc. I think one of the first things is for us to start. So we at the global initiative at OpenIMIS, we're very happy to sit with you to understand your needs and then figure out what support you need to use it in your situation. No? So I think in terms of where the resources are, definitely we have a lot of development partners, I'm sure, on the call as well. We have the IDB. There might be projects there that we can look into or other cooperation modalities as well. But I think even before that, and this is something that from the OpenIMIS initiative at the GIZ coordination desk, we would be very happy to do. Sit with the interested people and understand the requirements. What do you want to do? Then because the software itself is free, like there is, you don't need a lot of resources for it. What you would need resources for is basically to do some customizations for capacity building. So you're really not looking at a whole lot of resources. So it might be that you already have some internal resources to do it, and it's not a big project that you really need to seek external funding from. So I think the first step, we're very happy to engage with individual countries or groups of or subnational governments as well to understand the need to provide more information. Today was a very short session on that, but we can definitely go into what there is, what the modalities are, and then also help look for resources.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to go to a couple of technical questions. So the first one, and I'm putting a couple of questions together here, but there is a question about interpretability. Does OpenIMIS today allow for the interoperability? Oh, this is such a hard word. Interoperability with payment gateways and existing national health information systems. What are the challenges and the solution that you used for this?
Maybe I could ask Uwe to come in on the interoperability question.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I indicated a bit in the slides where I showed the two interoperability scenarios, one on the health side and one on the social protection side. We do have about 25 to 30 or 35 APIs, which are built according to the FHIR standard, which is an international global standard for exchange in health. Those we use in productive environments. So we do have scenarios in in Cameroon, in Nepal, where hospitals are sending e-claims to OpenIMIS. We have, like in almost every country in Africa where you install something in health, you're requested automatically by the government to send data to the DHIS2, which is a national health service reporting tool in almost every African country. So we have scenarios for that. And we have scenarios for payment in Tanzania, in Nepal, in Cameroon, I think as well, and a few more countries where we do offer standard APIs for sending payment requests, or like for outgoing payments, like hospital paying a hospital for the bill, or receiving payments like membership fees from beneficiaries. But the problem with payment is that you do not really have standards for payment, for connecting to payment hubs in countries. Most of them use their own specifications, or the one of the platform of the technical product that they are using. So you have to be flexible to plug in something in countries, and we have done that as well. So the payment adapters we have, they are there, but mostly in countries they use plugins to connect to the payment layers. We did just recently an overview of 4 countries for the OpenHIE initiative, which is like an initiative to introduce health information exchange to countries with lesser resources. And there's a recording plus a slide deck with those 4 country scenarios. And it's quite impressive how many tools are already in live scenarios connecting to OpenIMIS. So I will try to find the link quickly, and then I'll paste it in the chat.
Thank you so much. And there's another question here asking if OpenIMS allows for the configuration of social programs via the front end, meaning can the user create a couple of different programs with different enrollment requirements and have the app automatically decide if the candidate should be beneficiary of which program?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is something OpenIMIS does very well. It's a core feature of OpenIMIS, where you can have you can configure different benefit plans or different products. So you can configure, and there's another question there as well, and maybe I can answer that in one go. So both contributory and non-contributory schemes, you can define the various programs that you have. And manage them all through one instance. And in terms of identifying people, so as we looked at the social protection delivery chain in that graphic, from assess to enroll, that is the process. So if you have data, and then if you have criteria on selecting people that are in lists in OpenIMIS, and identifying them as beneficiaries, OpenIMIS can do that. So you can configure your, let's say, targeting criteria through various selections. We're still working on introducing, let's say, full functionality for a proxy means test based targeting. That will that's a little more complicated, and will take a few releases for us to get there. But if you have simple criteria on filters, so the system, if you configure them, then the system can give you the list of beneficiaries that are eligible based on that.
Thank you, Saurabh. And our time is almost over, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions that are fast to answer. The first one is from Angel from Peru, and he's asking if he can configure OpenIMIS in a Windows server.
Yes. Reference architecture is a Linux server, but the Docker scripts allow you to run it on a Windows server as well. And a lot of people are comfortable with Windows servers, and even on your desktop, you could install it to play around with it.
And what are the modules that are ready to use today?
Can you come again? What was that data model that we used today? Or-
Modules. What modules are available to use?
That was in one of the overview slides from the presentation. I don't know the number right now, but there are like modules for beneficiary registration, modules for program management, modules for social protection product definition, modules for facility management, like the health service providers, a module for claims management, like receiving claims, evaluating them, and there's we should mention the AI module that is doing the claim evaluation. There is a module for Saurav, help me. I'm not seeing the slide in front of me, but you might come up with more.
No, of course, claims, and then there's all for data analysis and administration. So again, I think what you saw on the presentation as modules, all of them are available. What within them, that you'll have to look into the documentation in detail on what there is, but those modules in some form are already available.
Thank you so much, Saurav. We have still a lot of questions, but unfortunately our time is almost over. And first of all, I want to thank all of you, all our panelists, and everyone, every participant. But I also wanted to ask Ernesto if he can close us here in the event. It's always amazing to work with Open IMSS, and always an honor to have DataPrev in our events at the IDB. So I would like, please, Ernesto, if you can close this event.
Sure, Julia, and thank you very much. Thank you very much also to our colleagues in Germany who participated in such a late hour and presented us this interesting and pioneering solution, and also showcasing the usage, potential usage also for Latin America, as shown by Felipe from DataPrev. I think we have a good starting point here now to collaborate and also further engage in discussion with the colleagues from Open IMSS as well as from DataPrev to see how we can further implement the solution in the Latin American region, as we see that the rise of the rise of the topic of DPI is gaining more and more ground, starting from the G20 presidency of India and now closing this year's G20 presidency in Brazil. And we are also looking forward for a G20 presidency in South Africa, where DPI will also be an important topic. And with that, I thank you all for your participation and your engaging discussion. And I hope we can further engage in this and collaborate and strengthen also the social security system, as well as other systems to protect and support the society in Latin America and in the world for a better cause. Thank you very much, and I hope you learned a lot today.
And see you again next month. Thank you so much.